Hey, what's going on, 2A family? Today we're going to be comparing the Glock 43X to the SIG P365X. Stay tuned. Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is Chris, and this is my good friend Angel. Today we're going to be comparing the Glock 43X to the SIG P365X.
So the 43X is your gun, and the SIG P365X is mine. So right away, what were some of the key things, difference-wise, you felt when you immediately switched over to the SIG?
Well, the SIG, it feels more compact. The grip, the stippling on the SIG was a lot more present. I was able to feel it a lot more.
You know, we'll start with the handling before we even get to the shooting. Like immediately, that was one thing for me. Like that's what made me, because I felt your gun before, I purchased this one.
Right.
And like with the SIG, it was just like one of the things that immediately made me gravitate towards it was I felt like the beaver tail. I felt like the
you were able to get high and tight.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. A lot more higher and tighter, I felt like.
Yeah.
As well as, the stippling was another thing that I feel like with the stippling, it's like a sandpaper type of texture. Yeah. I just felt like
there was more time put into that grip.
Yeah.
There's more time. Like this feels more like, all right, manufactured, but
yeah, it's just typical Glock.
Yeah.
It just feels like typical Glock, definitely. And I mean, I definitely feel like I get a better grip. And yeah, you know what? It feels a little bit more compact.
Right.
Because I believe if you put these side by side, I mean, wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can see.
Right, but if you turn them like this, and you can also see the single stack, they're both easily concealed.
Yeah. And the SIG is smaller, actually.
It is. Yeah. It is smaller.
So that's interesting. For a smaller gun, you felt like you had better control. Right. So other than the feel of the gun, with the sandpaper, stippling and whatnot like that. So when it came to quickly and we had the red dot off, correct?
The whole time?
When we did our shooting on comparison.
Yeah, we did the comparison. We had the red dot off.
It was really iron sights versus iron sights, correct?
Yeah, it was comparison between both guns and their iron sights.
Got you. Yeah. So how did you feel about, I guess we'll go straight to the shooting. Before we even talk about targets, how did you feel about the actual, the recoil of the gun and whatnot in comparison to each other?
I feel like it was very similar. I'm not, I don't think it was much of a difference to where I would be like, wow, like this one had a big difference between the other. But they both felt really great with recoil.
Yeah.
We were able to shoot and then get right back on target.
You know what's interesting too is actually there should have been, I think, more recoil with this because of it being, less
smaller.
Smaller gun, less barrel. So for yet again, for it to be comparable was pretty interesting, right?
You know what? That really attests to the grip that allows you to shoot accurately and get right back on target. That means that your grip was substantially, possibly better with this.
Yeah, right. And just to remind you guys, this is the X. So there is the P365, which has a shorter grip, which I think I didn't like it. Remember when we felt it?
I didn't like it as much as this.
Yeah, it was a little bit too short. Your pinky hangs off of it. I think we would have gotten drastically different results with that gun. But,
I mean, I don't know if drastic, but they do have the pinky extender for them. I don't know if that's something that some people will be interested in. It's slightly cheaper, but if you're going to go for the 365, I'd go for the 365X just because you could also put in the 12 rounders. I don't know where you're from. But, New York State's got that 10 round magazine capacity. But for law enforcement, you can go up to 12, possibly 15. So.
Yeah. Looking at how we did with our targets, with our groupings and things like that, do you want to go over yours first, maybe?
Yeah. So when I shot my Glock, you can see that, you know, I had decent groupings. There were about I'd say my whole grouping out of 10 rounds was about 4 inches apart.
I'd say about 4 or 5 inches.
Yeah. So I feel comfortable with my Glock. I mean, I've shot it plenty of times. I've qualified with it. So
it's super reliable.
It's reliable. Yeah,
super reliable.
Right.
I mean, you can't question the reliability.
Exactly. You can shoot these. You can throw. They can be in dirt, mud, whatever. Yeah. They're still gonna shoot.
I even said myself, I'd love to have one of these as like, you know, my night side. Yeah. You know, you can always trust that it's gonna go bang.
Of course,
you know?
And you're actually thinking about getting your wife one. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So. I'm not gonna lie though. After the comparison, I did think about maybe just getting her one of these, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. But anyway, so now what about when you shot the SIG?
So when I shot the SIG, I felt a lot more comfortable. For the test that we did, comparing the iron sights to iron sights, both were very similar. Very similar, I have to say. I mean, it all depends on your taste. But after shooting both, I considered buying the SIG P365X.
Yeah, we looked at one right after, right?
Yeah, I was like, now I gotta buy this because, you know, why not? More guns is better. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things too that I gotta say, looking at, you know, the targets that you hit. I mean, arguably the distance between your furthest shot from each other when it comes to the Glock versus the SIG, they're very comparable. Yeah. Which is a little, you know, when you think about it, it's like, wow, you know what? That's with you shooting your gun that you're most comfortable with,
right? Versus
a gun that you've never shot ever.
Exactly.
So it makes me say, like, what would I be groupings be
if I practice more with that?
Exactly.
Gun, right? Yep. I agree. And it made me actually want to shoot more. And you know, that's the problem with today. You know, ammunition prices are crazy. But
exactly.
It makes me want to shoot more. And
so
we're definitely going to get back out there. What did you think? What were your thoughts?
Yeah. So for me, obviously, I mean, looking at my groupings, I mean, it was great. I mean, so I started with the SIG. Yeah. And my groupings were phenomenal. I felt like, I mean, I had one or two that were kind of a little bit further out than I wanted, you know, but my groupings were, I felt phenomenal.
Yeah, well, I think one of your first shots were right on. One of your first shots were right on the bullseye.
So I mean, I think human error, I think I was shooting a little bit lower. But the grouping was, I mean, I couldn't ask for a tighter grouping in my opinion.
Not at all.
Then when it came, and yet again, this is my gun and I'm used to shooting it. So, that's, you know, the unfair advantage. But when it came to shooting your Glock, I felt like I got a decent grouping for never shooting the gun before. Right. Being my first time, I felt like I got a decent grouping. I think I could get a comparable grouping to the SIG. I don't think it would be quite as good of a grouping as I did with the SIG, but I think it'd be close. It'd be if I practice a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, still, I can't complain. The recoil was comparable. Yeah. Everything was pretty. It was pretty comparable. The only thing I could really say was that I mean. Yeah, it was just also the comfortability of the SIG, you know, because for me, at least when I shoot, sometimes my hands get a little bit sweaty. So I feel like having that stippling, you know, makes a big difference. As well as I feel like, just the comfortability, you know, the comfortability. Right. So I think that's what really won me over was the comfortability, because I mean that's a big thing when you're shooting, you know.
Yeah, the fundamentals, like. The number one thing is going to be your grip, right?
Yeah.
So getting back on target, keeping that trigger squeezed, and then releasing slowly till you get that reset.
Yep.
You know, right then and there.
And the trigger, you made a good point too. The triggers are two completely different triggers.
Right.
I felt like I do like that the Glock has a safety on the trigger.
Yeah.
But
decent.
Yeah, but I did like. I mean, for me, the more flatter trigger. On the SIG, and it's a more wider it's a more wider trigger.
Right. It gives the pad on your
Yes.
your trigger finger more of a spot to have like more surface
Felt
area.
more comfortable yet again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean because like you have that little safety in between. You know, it's like I don't know. After shooting a bunch of rounds, it did start to bother me a little bit. Yeah, it started to bother me a little bit.
Yeah.
But in a concealed carry, everyday carry, I mean, you're not shooting that many rounds, you know.
And like when you have the trigger squeezed, and you're coming back, and you got that trigger reset, boom, you keep that straight there, and then pull back again. There's less room for error. You know, a lot of people like to release the trigger and then place the trigger finger back on the trigger, and that's another thing. Like it's all those fundamentals: grip, trigger finger placement, you know, resetting for the next shot. It's like
exactly
all those things matter when we're trying to perform. So
yeah, I mean, feel that trigger, man.
Yeah.
So very comfortable, very smooth.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then trigger reset. There you go.
Yeah. So I mean, so yeah. So like I said, so my groupings, I mean, I feel like they were pretty accurate for, you know, like I said, this is my everyday carry versus your everyday carry. Definitely a preference thing, but I definitely, in my opinion, when it came to our shooting, I felt like I had to give it to the SIG. Final thoughts. So if you're someone like me that, I mean, the grip was a really big thing for me. You know, I have Glocks. I've had Glocks, and I mean, it just. I'm somebody, I don't know why, but I tend to kind of sweat when I'm at the range when I'm shooting. So this made it just feel so much more comfortable. As well as, I mean, yet again, that beaver tail comes out so far that I can get really high up. It was just a real comfortability kind of thing for me. So if you're looking for something that has already, because the great thing about this gun is that the trigger assembly comes out, the slide comes off, and now you just have the polymer frame that you can swap out. So you can swap this to a smaller, you know, a shorter, a shorter grip like the regular 365, or you can swap it, have the X or like this frame or the XL frame. All the 365s have that. You can do that, as well as they have, I think it's called Wilson Arms or something like that. That they have. It's a more stippled, a different feel to it. Yeah, we saw that actually at the gun store. Yeah. So you know, that's what's so great that I feel like. I mean, I wish I may have bought the Glock 43X if they would have had this type of adjustment, you know, difference, the change in being able to switch out the grips. So yeah, if you want something that has more of a grip to it, and is a little bit smaller, then I think maybe the SIG might be the way to go. I don't think you'll be giving up any kind of accuracy, because I think you can learn to shoot just as good with either or. Of course. But yeah, I mean, SIG, they got it right. They called it the 365 because I really do want to carry this thing every single day. I love it. Yeah, it's great. So, and then on top of that, you get the optic cut on. Then it's a wrap.
I agree. I mean, here's the thing: you got your SIG 365X. You're saying the ducktail, and that's one thing that I love about this gun, because when you're shooting, when you're firing, your hand is absorbing a lot of that recoil, including that ducktail and the grip, and those add to your fundamentals right there and then.
And there's one other thing that I will mention, that what made it bothersome for me with the Glock is, well, not bothersome, but I feel like in comparison, you get more straight out of the factory from SIG, in my opinion. As far as you can get a SIG that already has the cut for the red dot, for optics. I'm not sure if Glock.
You can get MOS.
Oh, you can get it MOS factory?
Yeah.
Okay. Being able to swap the grips.
Right.
You know, that's a big thing for me, because I didn't want to have to buy a Glock and have to send it out for stippling. And then on top of that, if they mess it up, that's it.
Yours.
You have to buy a new frame, you know?
Exactly.
So that was a big thing for me. Yet again, I wasn't aware that you can get it the slide already cut.
Right.
I had, I thought they only came like that, but it's been a while since I bought a Glock.
It is. I mean, like MOS, you get the MOS. One thing about the Glock that I like is it's so easy to take apart, put it back together. You can do it with a blindfold on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we figured this out with your SIG. You were able to take it apart, but it took a little time. It takes a little getting used to.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for an everyday carry, I mean, even personally, I would probably go with SIG 365X. The Glock, I carry it every day right now, but eventually I want to transition. Maybe every once in a while I'll go back to the Glock, but every day I feel like this is going to be more of a. I have to practice with the red dot, but it's going to be more of a well-rounded gun and confidence builder.
I think if Glock, because they've kept a similar style for a very long time. I think if they started to kind of, do some of the things that like SIG is doing, we'd have a different conversation right now, because you'd have the reliability of Glock with a lot of the new things that people really want, Right. So I think, I think it depends on what you're after. I think if you want something out the box, I think they're both great guns.
Right.
I think they're both great guns. It just depends on what you want, what you're after, But this is a shout out to Glock. I hope, they start, maybe bringing some more features that SIG, some of the similar features that SIG is kind of bringing out, like being able to switch out the frames and stuff.
I hope so as well.
That would be phenomenal.
And at the very least, let's try to get some stippling on there. At the very least, I mean, they have aftermarket magazines that you could extend to 15s. They're metal magazines, so you might want to swap out the mag release, but that's an option. How many rounds you want to carry, it's up to you. All right, guys, so that's about it. I hope all the information that we gave you was useful and helpful. Between the SIG P365X and the Glock 43X, we showed you the differences and what our opinions were on them, and hopefully that was helpful to you. I'll see you on the next episode.